Get comfortable. All right, we're on. Tonight, first of all, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming. As always, good to see everyone, and for everyone joining us via this wonderful piece of technology. Think inside the box. So I love this title, not just because it's a little, provocative, counterintuitive, but I think it's something very deep to be learned. In the sense that usually there's conventional wisdom, and we live our lives often, we're brought up into this wisdom. It's so mainstream that it's taken for granted, and often we don't look beyond it. And so one of the things, ironically, that we're taught is to always think outside of the box. So we're always looking in the most obscure places. We're always trying to one-up everyone else. How can I think differently? And where can I discover something new? To find solutions, to create things. And we've become so nurtured with that. We're so into that we often neglect things in our own backyard. We neglect to look in the most obvious of places for solutions. So, for example, it's not a secret that a lot of the people who were the early seekers of Buddhism in America were all Jews, looking for spirituality, and what they failed to neglect is in their own heritage, in their own religion, there was such deep spiritual teachings that would have satiated their spiritual quest. So tonight we're going to look at thinking inside the box. Sometimes you got to look inside the box. What we're going to discover is even within the box, there is a box, and there's boxes within boxes. That's the talk tonight, the theme. We're up to what a lot of people regard as the most boring part of the Torah. I disagree, and we'll see tonight why. But for 4 out of the next 5 portions, so this week included, discuss the Mishkan, the portable temple, the tabernacle that the Jews built in the desert that became the prototype for the temple that eventually was built in Jerusalem, and the 2 temples that were built. They differed slightly, but the structure, the main structural components remain the same. And literally it's a portion filled with measurements and materials. It's like out of an IKEA catalog. Exact sizes of exact which material and where the rings should go to lock onto the next piece. And this is God speaking to Moses of the intricate design of the Mishkan, which seems there's no great narrative, there's no fascinating story, it's just architecture, it's just design. But we have to ask ourselves, why was God so concerned with the nuances and minutiae of the design of the Mishkan? Couldn't God just told people, I want you to build me a temple? Go, whatever you can. They had architects on board. They would have been talented Jews there that could think of ideas of how to build a great temple. I mean, they weren't the first to build a temple. They weren't the last to build a temple. Why would God need to direct them, inch by inch, literally? What materials, how, even the order of which materials should go on first? Why? Why the need for detail? And Jewish teachings, our tradition says that the details of the building of the Mishkan were not by chance. They all symbolize something deep. So everything in this building of the Mishkan, everything in the temple, is deeply symbolic. So both the materials, the measurements, the shapes, the components, everything alludes to things which are much larger than just the structure of the temple. I read a few years ago, fascinating, about Isaac Newton, that he was a religious man, obviously. Most of back then the scientists were, but apparently when he died, they found a huge box of writings. And they asked one of the bishops, who was a scientist, to go look at the writings. And he took a look at these writings and he sealed the box off as not to publish. And they were, sealed off for hundreds of years. And eventually went to different collections. And recently they've come to light. And a lot of mystical works, apparently he was a monotheist against the Trinity, which is why I obviously didn't want to bring it to light. And a lot of Jewish texts quoted in there, from the Talmud to the Midrash. Fascinating. He was a really big believer in the Bible. And one of the things he studied extensively was the structure of the Mishkan and the temple. As Maimonides writes it out, this based on this, these parashas, and also from the book of Ezekiel, his vision of the temple, which is going to be closer to how the third temple will look. And Newton felt that these measurements contain the secrets of the world. And as he was trying to figure out how the world worked, trying to figure out gravity and map out sort of the world, he was looking to this and wrote a treatise on the cubit, which is the measurement used in this, and how that he was trying to extrapolate the exact dimension of the cubit in Jewish tradition, and that he was hoping would unlock secrets of figuring out the dimensions of the world and whatever else he was studying. So he understood this, that the Mishkan, the measurements there weren't by chance, but every detail has something deep. It's a microcosm of the universe. And the way God wanted the Mishkan to be tells us how we should be making the world to be. So you read through the Parsha, and most of it we don't see clearly how and what and why. But some parts of the Mishkan, many parts, have been expounded upon, the secrets have been extrapolated by the sages, by the commentaries. And tonight we're going to focus on one of them in particular, one piece of furniture in the Mishkan, which incidentally was also in the Beis HaMikdash and continues to exist today somewhere. The Ark. Right? There's a myth, the legend of the Ark. Yeah. Where is it? Buried in Indiana Jones, and everyone's looking for this Ark. But Jewish tradition says that it's hidden beneath Temple Mount somewhere. That when King Solomon built a temple, he built a intricate and complex series of tunnels that were there to be a need to hide the Ark, they would go down and hide the Ark there. And before the temple was destroyed, the first temple, a while before, when there was a threat of destruction, of attack, they hid the Ark in this elaborate labyrinth of tunnels. And it was never seen since then. There was no Ark in the second temple. It was an empty space. But it's somewhere there on Temple Mount, beneath the earth. We don't know where. So, we're going to read now part of the passage that Torah tells about the Ark. And what I want to do is figure out what we can learn, what the Ark symbolized. So the specifics of its makeup, of its dimensions, of its material, what that tells us and what we can learn in our own lives from the Ark. Source number 1 here from Exodus 25. They shall make an ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high. So it's a wooden box. Overlay it with pure gold, overlay it inside and out, and make upon it a gold molding around it. Okay? So this is the basic structure of the ark. We have a box, 2.5 by 1.5 by 1.5. A wooden box seems to be plated in gold. That's how you'd read it, right? So before we go further, a number of questions that immediately stick out if you have context, which we don't have on the sheet here. But if you're looking at the ark in the context of everything else in this parsha, there are a number of strange nuances in the text that jump out at you. Number 1, They shall make an ark. Who's they? Throughout the whole building of the Mishkan, it's always singular. He should make, or you should make, he should make. Here it's va'asu. They shall make. The plural. The only object in the Mishkan which they are making. Seemingly the public. The whole Jewish people is involved in the creation of the ark. Number two, every measurement given in the Mishkan, and there are plenty of them, from the supporting beams to the rods to the walls and the Mizbeach, the altar, the menorah, every measurement given in the Mishkan is a complete number. 1 cubit, 10 cubits, 30 cubits, 11 cubits. The ark is the only vessel, the only piece of furniture in the Mishkan, and subsequently in the temple, that had half cubits in its measurements. In fact, all of the measurements of the ark were half. 2.5 by 1.5 by 1.5. Wasn't 2 at 1 by 1? So it seems to stand out that God was purposely making the ark different from everything else, in the fact that its measurements had to cut in half a cubit. And the third question I want to ask here is, what's the deal with the material used for the ark? Throughout the temple usage, things were made of gold. In fact, the Talmud says if the Jews were affluent at a time when they could afford it, everything in the temple should be of gold. The floor should be gold. There were times where everything made of gold. They had money. Gold was the most precious material they had, and whatever they could make in the temple out of gold, they did, and they should. Some things had to be made of gold. For example, the menorah, one solid block of gold. The shulchan was made out of solid gold. All the little tools had to be out of gold. Yet here, the ark has to specifically made out of wood, but plated in gold. Plated on the inside and the outside. So why? What is it? What about this ark makes it that it should be out of wood? And what does the fact that it's made out of wood teach us? Now, before we get into what it teaches us, how do they actually do it? From the text, it seems they plated it with gold, which put a very thin gold leaf on the inside and outside. But the Talmud tells us something else. So the Talmud in Yuma says, Bezalel was tasked with creating the Mishkan. He was a Jew at a time in the desert, and he was the craftsman, the artisan, who was tasked with building the Mishkan and its vessels. He was at least the leader on top of the project. So Rava said, that Rabbi Yehuda said, Bezalel made 3 arks. A middle one of wood, which was 9 handbreadths, an inner one of gold, 8 handbreadths, and an outer one of gold, 10 handbreadths and a bit. So he actually made 3 boxes, each one handbreadth smaller than the other, so it would fit inside it. So there was a gold box, a wooden box outside of that, and a gold box outside of that. So the wooden box wasn't plated with gold, it's actually sandwiched between 2 gold boxes. Now, we don't see it in the text, but that's how they understood the text originally, and obviously they knew because Moses was relaying it to them directly. So, for some reason, it wasn't to be plated with gold, but actually 3 unique boxes, separate boxes that had to come together to create the ark. A strange piece of furniture, right? It's almost like, those babushkas? You take out one, and the next one, they keep taking it out. Except this was never taken out. No one touched the ark. The ark was never opened. So it remained there. So why the 3 boxes if it's going to stay in one place and never be opened and uncased?
Is it symbolic of the layers of life?
Okay, great. Yes. I believe it is symbolic. How would you read in symbolism?
grandiosity of the gold is on the outside, but it is holding together a more humble piece of wood.
Beautiful. And how would you explain it in life?
Well, the exteriors are not what is interior always.
So that sounds really good, and it's very close to what I want to say. I'll ask you one question though. Is the fact that the exterior doesn't match the interior a positive or a negative? Meaning, is it the ideal or something we have to deal with?
Oh, I see. That's a very good question.
I would think that it's something we have to deal with. The fact that what people seem to be isn't necessarily who they are, and how we present ourselves isn't necessarily who I am on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a good thing, it would seem. So why would the ark be symbolizing a less than ideal experience or existence? And to take this question one step further, I want to read you a passage from the Talmud, the very next passage on this source sheet. And it sounds so strange in the context. So it's from the very same Talmud, Yoma 72b. And it quotes the verse that we read, that the inside has to be gold and the outside has to be gold. And the Talmud says, from within and from without you shall cover it with gold. 25:11. Rava said, from this we learn, any Torah scholar whose inside is not like his outside is not a Torah scholar. So Rava is learning from this verse. The verse says the ark had to be gold on the inside and gold on the outside, even though no one's ever going to see the inside. Just paint the outside in gold. No, if you're painting the outside in gold, you have to also paint the inside in gold. So Rava says, we learn from here, your outside has to reflect your inside. There has to be authenticity, sincerity. And if a person is presenting himself as pious, as a scholar, but inside they're rotten to the core,
Right.
or they're putting on a show, they're not a scholar. They're not a Torah scholar, not a Talmud Chacham. Part of a scholar is that you're an authentic person, you're real. Who you are on the inside is who you are on the outside. How you express yourself on the outside reflects who you are on the inside. And so, Irma, back to what you were saying. Rava says the ark symbolized the opposite of what you were suggesting. That the structure of the ark symbolized being authentic. Your inside matching your outside. But, as Irma pointed out, the structure of the ark actually seems the opposite. The inside and the outside were thin layers of gold. What was really the inside? The wood. Measly wood. If anything, the ark seemed to symbolize, like Irma said, how we're not authentic. How things seem on the outside don't reflect how they really are on the inside. And so Rava's statement seems out of place. Although he's trying to project the ark as an ideal existence, ideal way of living, the actual structure of it seems anything but.
It also seems it could be like another symbolic way is the middle one of wood is the intermediary between the infinite light of Hashem, which is 10, the decade, 1 and a 0, right? And the inner one of gold is that spark that the Lubavitcher Rebbe says we always have. Even if you think you've sunk so low, there's always that spark, because you can never be separate from Hashem, the light of Hashem. And being that wood is the middle, that's our chore here on earth, is to be the intermediary between the infinite light of Hashem and the spark that's within that we might not even know we're conscious of. And the wood is the pliability of being the intermediary between both. But all three arcs are one. So they're not separate. So it's
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Ian?
That's he said it better. That's kind of where I was thinking. I was thinking that the outer box was kind of like the expression of what you do with your inner soul. It's what you do in the outside world. It's what people see, but it's also your actions. And then the wood is alive. It's something that's living. It's your life. And the inside is your neshama, your soul. So, yeah, that's what
Beautiful. Beautiful. You, I don't need to give a class. That's it. Stole the show. No. These are all great readings, and I was gonna say something very similar. But I want to lead up to it, right? So I'm gonna say the same thing, just a little more flesh, a little more beef. And I'm going to introduce it with another strange thing about the ark. The ark, we go on for hours about the ark. It was it was the cornerstone of the temple. According to some commentaries, without it there is no temple. It's where God met with Moses. It's where God's presence rested. It was in the Holy of Holies that no one was allowed to enter besides one person once a year. The Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur went into the Holy of Holies and saw the ark. Other than that, it was hidden from view. So it was so precious that it was untouchable, unreachable, inaccessible. So we have this unique dichotomy about the ark. On the one hand, it's so sacred that it's beyond reach of anybody. It's kept away, locked up in a, conceptual safe. On the other hand, it says a plural. It's the only vessel that every Jew somehow was sort of building it. They should make the ark. Another fascinating point is that, look in the last source here on the page, and this is a continuation of Exodus 25. It says, cast 4 gold rings for it to be attached to its 4 feet, 2 rings on one side wall and 2 on the other. Make poles of acacia wood overlaid with gold, then insert the poles into the rings on the side walls of the ark for carrying the ark. So basically, in the Mishkan they were traveling a lot. They collapsed the Mishkan, traveled, rebuilt it again. It was a real one of those, like an IKEA piece of furniture, right? Put it together, pick it apart. It was original. And a lot of the temple vessels, the piece of furniture, had these poles. So they can carry it on their shoulders. One guy in front, one guy in back, put the poles on the shoulders and walk. The ark was no different. It had these rings with poles. Except the rest of the vessels, we assume, as soon as they camped, they pitched tent, put the Mishkan back up, took the poles out. They're not traveling, put them in the storage until they travel again. This slide the poles back in. These are poles made for carrying. If you're not carrying it, they just get in the way. The ark was unique. The only piece of furniture we find this. Verse 15, the poles shall remain in the rings of the ark, they shall not be removed from it. It was an offense, it was an avera, it was a sin to remove the poles from the ark. They remained in those rings eternally. Which is why if you ever see a picture of the ark, you'll notice the 2 poles going on either side. Why? And so the commentaries say that the ark, which housed the luchot, the tablets, the Torah, had to always be portable. Had to be always accessible to everyone, ready to travel at a whim, ready to go to the most far-flung Jew wherever he is. This is a Torah which is everyone's. And so the menorah, once it's in its place, it's in its place. It's part of the temple. The Torah, which the ark symbolized the depth of Torah, it housed The Torah which Moses wrote and how the tablets that God gave him had to always, even when in a stable place, be at a moment's notice ready to move. Because it had to be accessed or able to be accessed by anyone anywhere. So you have this very strange inconsistency in the symbolism of the ark. On the one hand, it's everybody's, it's the universal ark that everyone has access to, everyone was involved in making. On the other hand, it's inaccessible. It's too deep, too sacred for anyone to have access to. And I think this explains, or this can be a gateway to explain the structure of the ark and what it means in our lives. You know, they say, it's the line I'm thinking of. You don't find yourself, you don't create yourself, you find yourself. Right? Or as I read a few days ago, a good line, I forgot what it was. Come to me. But, something to the extent of good leaders aren't just good at solving problems, they know which problems to solve. We want to find answers. I started like this. We're looking for things outside of ourselves. We're looking for meaning, looking for purpose, looking for inspiration. And what do? On a day we're feeling low, on a time where we need an extra boost, or even in a good time where you're looking somehow to where channel your inspiration, we naturally look to everywhere else in the world outside of ourselves. We look to other people. We look to ideas. We're always looking for something that's going to talk to us. It's like flicking through TV channel, just waiting for that thing that's going to, and now thankfully we have Netflix, right? You can choose whatever you want. Come from within. You don't have to find something outside yourself that's going to talk to you. Right? It makes it even worse. I know.
Right.
So much choice. But that's what it's about. We're looking for that thing that's going to talk to us. It's going to answer our problems. It's going to solve our issues. And we don't find it, we either numb ourselves or we find other solutions. Right? People turn to other vices to express themselves or to allow themselves to be despite the issue they're facing, the problems they're facing. And the three layers of the ark are three layers of self. This is what Ian was saying, but it ties into what you were saying and Irma as well. Who are we? Who am I? And which part of myself do I look to define myself? There's three ways you can define yourself. There's the essential humanity, the core self. The worth that is given to us by virtue of being created in God's image. That every human being is equal. We have a soul. And it's the part of our soul that is pure, that is wholesome, that is good. Every human being, at their core, is good. Good because they have a spark of God. There's golden center, which is soft, rich, pure. Then we have what we usually define as a self. Our consciousness. Our self that we know. The person that we identify with. And that's something which we're constantly battling with, constantly trying to grow. It's something that's dynamic, not static. Like wood, like trees that grow. They're alive. And we can constantly change. We have good days and bad days. Wood can rot. Gold can't rot. It's a metal. Wood can get infested and rot. but also can grow tall and strong. So it's the side of ourselves, it's a part of ourselves that's developing. It's our emotions, it's our intelligence, it's everything we know about ourselves, our personality. It's the self that we usually identify with. But then there's the external layer, our behavior. How we present ourselves to the world. How we present ourselves to others. What we do. Here's the fascinating thing. When I'm not in the mood of doing something good, if I'm not in the mood of praying today, even though prayer is part of my daily ritual, if I'm not in the mood today of helping people that I'm close with, and I do it anyways, am I being inauthentic or not?
Not
Why not?
because there's something coming from within you that is permitting you to do it, even though consciously you're saying, I don't really want to be bothered with this.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Why am I doing it if I'm not in the mood of doing it? Why are you going through those motions? You may not even know it, but it's because there is in your core a calling to do it. And that's why you've put it as part of your daily routine. Because you want it to be there come what may. No matter what mood you're in, I want it to be there. So I've set it in my schedule. Instead of saying, when I'm inspired, I'll pray. That could be an attitude. That was the early prayer in Judaism. When you're inspired, you pray. But what's going to happen is, when you're uninspired, there's no connection to you and God. You never develop that relationship. So instead, the rabbis put it as part of a schedule. Morning, afternoon, evening. 3 times a day you pray. It's on your calendar. It's in your schedule. You come to the synagogue at 7 in the morning, and you're not in the mood today. You still go through that motion. This is my daily schedule. Are you being inauthentic? No. There's a reason I put it on the schedule, because deep inside of me, I want myself to be in the mood every morning. And so the behavior on the outside shouldn't reflect always how I'm actually feeling. It should reflect who I am, my deepest self. And the amazing thing is that we don't have control always of ourselves. We're not perfect people. And maybe we're never going to be perfect. That's who we are, we're human. But our behavior can be perfect. We have the strength, if we have the willpower for it, we have the ability to have perfect behavior. Which means my daily living, the actions that I take, could always be right, could always be doing the right thing, even when I'm not there. We don't behave that way. At least myself. I can't speak about anyone else here. Why don't we behave that way? Well, I'm not in the mood, so I don't want to do that. Or I have other things that are driving me and I want to follow that part of myself. Or sometimes I feel, nah, it's not me. It's inauthentic. And so I look outside of myself to how I should define myself. I'm influenced by so many other things in what I should find my calling, in how I should interact and react and live my life. But the outside can be gold because our innermost point is gold. Where should we be looking in how to live our most public layer of self? In the most private layer of self. So how to define the way I interact with the world around me, what it means to have a perfect living, what decisions should I be making in an ideal state of being, I have to get in touch with my core state of self. I have to get in touch with who I really am. I have to understand, recognize what this deepest part of myself is and wants, and then I'm able to live that out in a practical way, even though I'm still in the process of growth, of struggling with myself, with my inner demons. So, if we backtrack a little bit, this is what the ark symbolized. On the one hand, it was the most sacred, deep object that existed in the world, and therefore was out of bounds, out of touch from anyone. No one could touch it, no one could even see it. It's something that symbolizes something that's untouchable, immutable. It's a truth that we can never fully appreciate because we can never be perfect, and we can't appreciate perfection. Like God himself. We can never truly comprehend God because we are imperfect human beings. And so, perfection is something which we can never get. We can never actually reach, never touch, never even see. It just exists, it's there. It's unmalleable, it can never change. But we can't really access it in its purest form. We can never have it. Just know of it. On the other hand, the ark was meant to be something which the public was involved in. Always with its poles ready to be schlepped to the furthermost points of the world. Because it's precisely that deepest truth, that transcendent truth, that's able to influence the most external level of behavior. Able to define how someone living on the edge, on the brink, in a far-flung, conceptually far-flung place from this ark, can actually act in the here and now. Behave in the here and now. It can define how to live in the moment and ignore who you are, where you're from, where you're holding in your struggle and battle. You can look to the ark and say, well, right now I'm going to do this. This moment's going to be gold. This moment, which within that moment is eternal. It's all that exists is the here and now, the right now. It's going to be gold. Am I gold? It's irrelevant. I'm wood. I'm a work in process. I'm in progress. But because I know that there is a truth, there is that gold, that pure ark, I can make the moment, the here and now, into a pure piece of gold as well, that shines. And so, the inner gold and outer gold, says the Talmud, Rava says, that is the authentic Talmud Chacham. The person who is acting out who they are on the inside. Not who they are in the middle. Because that we all have our demons, we all have our struggles. And I mean, it's popular today to they say the joke. If a guy goes to a bar, orders a drink, chugs it down, and takes the bottle of beer and throws it behind the bartender, smashing it to pieces. Strange. He gets so upset. Sorry, I lost myself. He comes back the next day, the same thing. Chugs down the beer, throws the bottle in a fit of rage, and then apologizes profusely. I'm so sorry. This happens for a week. Finally, the bartender says to the guy, listen, I hate to do this, but you can't come back in until you see a therapist. This is dangerous. It's crazy. 6 months later, the guy walks back into the bar, and the bartender says, have you seen your therapist? He says, yes, I was 6 months in therapy. Okay, so he gives him a drink, chugs down the beer, and takes the bottle in a fit of rage again and throws it behind the bartender. He says, I thought you saw a therapist. Like you. He says, yeah. I don't feel bad about it anymore.
Right.
So it's a common thing that
Yes.
if I'm going through a struggle, a challenge, right? Let me live that out. Okay, I'm imperfect, and I'm wearing that imperfection on my sleeve. I'm proud of my imperfection, right? Let me live that way. I'm not going to be nice to you. You know why? I cut you off on the train. I'm in a bad mood. That's who I am right now. Why should I fake and pretend? That's fake. And that's one way of living, right? And you see someone who's gold on the outside, even though you know they're wood, you say that person's inauthentic. But that couldn't be further from the truth, because it may be inauthentic on a very surface level. But really it's the real authenticity. It's that even though I don't want to do this now, even though I'm not motivated for it, all I want to do is give in to my struggles. All I want to do is is exploit the vices that make me feel good and happy in the moment. But I'm going to stay strong and do something that I know is right. I'm going to live up to a standard that deep down inside I know is me. That's real authenticity. That takes more backbone than being able to live in the moment how you feel in the moment. You're living in the moment how you feel eternally. Something that's higher in the moment, deeper in the moment. That's authentic. And so Rava says, forget the wood in the middle. If there's gold on the outside, gold on the inside, that's an authentic scholar. Talmud Chacham. Now, if there wouldn't be wood in the middle, we wouldn't be human. That creates the whole dynamic of life. This creates the struggle of life. This creates why life is exciting. It's real. We're living every day something else. A new battle, a new struggle. So the wood is the most important part of the ark. Look at the verse. Make an ark of acacia wood. Wood is what the ark is. Who are we? We're the wood. And we have to constantly try make that wood grow instead of rot. We have to constantly work on that wood, become better people. But at the end of the day, we have to realize the wood is coated in gold. Not just coated in gold. There's a gold box within the wood. An existence of gold of its own. And there's also, we have to create the gold box on the outside. And so when we're looking for ideas of self, we're looking for planning our future, we're looking at where we should find ourselves, we're looking at whatever anyone's going through, we have to think inside the box. Go within the box, within the box, within the box. Strip away layers. And then say, okay, now I want this, but am I wanting this because it's a fad right now? That's not me. Strip it away. Am I wanting this because others have impressed upon me this importance of this? Strip it. Am I wanting this because I feel it's going to make me happy right now? I'm in that mood. Is that me? Strip it away. These are layers of externality that are hiding yourself from yourself. They're protecting because we don't want to become vulnerable. We don't want to look that deep inside of ourselves. It's scary to know, who am I really? It may be altering to our whole entire lives. And we're not ready to face that. So we build defenses. We don't like thinking that deep about ourselves. We build these boxes and boxes, wooden boxes usually, or maybe even plastic boxes, that are just shielding us from everything, keeping us safe. Life is easy, secure. These are decisions I've made to make my life easy right now, and I don't want to think outside of them or inside of them. But essentially, if you want to live a gold, if you want to have the outside box of gold, the only way to do that is to recognize the inside box of gold. Because without the inside gold, the outside gold doesn't exist. So you have to look deep inside yourself to be able to create that outside. The ark had to be so inaccessible because it can never be touched by a human being. It's not affected by the ups and downs of life. It's just secure. It is. It's the truth. No one can touch it. No one can move it. No one can see it. It's not in our realm of grappling with it. Because of that, it's able to also impact who we are. I'll just finish off with what was in the ark. What was in the gold box, in the wooden box, in the gold box? The tablets. 10 Commandments given by God. There was a Torah scroll, the original Torah scroll written by Moses, either in the ark or next to the ark. And there were actually 2 sets of tablets. The original broken tablets and the whole complete tablets, second set. Now, of course, as a Jew, who are core as we believe is defined by Torah. God gave us a document that is the guidebook to life. It tells us who we are. And so within that inner golden box is the Torah, the tablets. That's our core self, our deepest self. But the broken tablets being in there teaches us one final important lesson. And that is, and this is also why the some commentaries say, the measurements were always half cubits. The only way to live this, the only way to access the golden box of the ark, is through being humble, through making yourself vulnerable, getting rid of any pride. As soon as you stop believing that I have the answers, or I've become something, I've made myself into something, you've locked up the inner box and put it aside. Because the I that you're identifying with is the wooden box. That's the ego, the self. And you've essentially hidden that golden core. And from then on, if you don't have that, your outside begins to rot. It becomes a wooden box on its own. So the way to access it is the broken shards of the tablet, breaking that pride. Sometimes, the Kotzker Rebbe, one of the great Hasidic sages, says, there's nothing more whole than a broken heart. There's a certain sense of humility. Doesn't mean you walk around broken. We shouldn't be broken, we should be happy people. But there's a certain sense of, I don't have all the answers. I don't know everything. Even about myself, get rid of that pride, get rid of that ego, and you open yourself up to a truer you, a more authentic you, a deeper you. And so ironically, the brokenness leads to joy. Tonight is the first day of Adar, the month of joy. And this year we have a double dose of Adar. There's an extra month of Adar because of a leap year. And so 60 days of joy. So here's one of the secrets, Jewish secrets to joy. Happiness doesn't come from filling yourself with good things. It comes from emptying yourself. The broken tablets, shattering that pride, shattering that sense of comfort of self that you've built for yourself, shattering those boxes that you've built around yourself, they allow you to open yourself up to a wholesome self, to a self that's much deeper than any of that. And so they allow you to experience real joy. There's joy in the small moments, as I get excited about this and excited about that. Are they really making me happy? Is it really creating a sense of joy that lives on past that moment? Usually not. But when I'm able to get in touch with who I am and feel really fulfilled that I'm living a life in sync with my deepest wishes, what I really want for myself, and I'm living that out, that's joy. You're living higher. You're living in this elevated state. You can walk down the street smiling. You're in touch with it. You're in sync with it. What's the it? With who you really are. You're on top of the world. And so, stripping away layers of things that we think make us happy, that we've assumed an association of happiness, and allowing it to come from within, allowing it to be free-flowing from who we really are, that's the real way to joy. And so inside it, with the tablets, the Torah, but also the broken tablets, to remind the Jewish people at that time of their sin of the golden calf. No matter how high they climbed, they weren't perfect. The humility that it gave them, and it continues to give Jewish people for eternity, those broken tablets, that humility, instead of reminding us of sin, of sadness, actually opened us up to a deeper experience of self and to real joy. So, l'chaim, we should experience joy in Adar and throughout the whole entire year. We should be able to somewhat get in touch with this goal we have inside of ourselves, respect the gold everyone has inside of them, and then remember, if that's who I am, really, then I can constantly act that way, and it's not being inauthentic. In fact, it's being authentic, because I am living out what I believe in, the real me, and that's authenticity. Any questions, comments, arguments, rebuttals?
That was sublime.
Inspiration.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was very, yeah.